June 6, 1944, the day that changed the world. Dawn broke over the beaches of Normandy as the largest amphibious invasion in history began. The Germans were ready, or so they thought. What they weren't ready for were tanks that could float. In the early hours of D-Day, Allied commanders faced a terrifying problem. How could they get heavy armored tanks onto beaches guarded by mines, artillery, and cliffs without losing thousands of soldiers before even landing? They needed something impossible, a tank that could swim through the sea and roll straight into battle. Months before the invasion, British engineers secretly worked on a bold experiment called the DD tank, short for duplex drive. At first glance, it looked like a normal Sherman tank, but hidden inside was a strange invention, a collapsible canvas screen that surrounded the tank like a bathtub, and a pair of propellers powered by the engine. Once deployed, the tank could float on water, like a steel boat armed with a cannon. When the first prototypes were tested, even the engineers couldn't believe it. The tanks bobbed on waves, moving forward at 5 kilometers per hour. It looked absurd, almost comical, yet it worked. And it would soon save thousands of lives. As the invasion day approached, 29 amphibious tank regiments were trained in secret. Each crew knew they might never come back. On the night before D-Day, the crews wrote letters home, knowing they would be among the first to touch enemy soil. At dawn, the order came. From landing craft just 2 kilometers offshore, the tanks were lowered into the churning sea. Waves crashed over their canvas skirts. Engines roared. One by one, the tanks began to float toward Normandy. German lookouts on the cliffs saw dark shapes emerging from the fog, shapes that shouldn't exist. They radioed in panic, calling them ghost machines. To the German soldiers defending the beaches, it looked like tanks were rising straight out of the ocean, unstoppable and silent. In some sectors, especially at Sword and Juno Beach, the floating Shermans arrived first, firing as they reached shore. The psychological effect was enormous. German gunners hesitated, shocked by what they were seeing. That hesitation gave Allied infantry precious minutes to land and advance. But not every story ended well. At Omaha Beach, rough seas swallowed most of the tanks before they reached land. Many crews went down with their machines, their sacrifice still remembered as one of the bravest acts of the invasion. By the end of D-Day, only about half of the floating tanks made it ashore. But those that did proved the impossible was possible. They destroyed bunkers, cleared paths for troops, and helped secure the beaches that would lead to the liberation of Europe. To the Germans, they were a nightmare from the deep machines that defied logic. To history, they were proof of human courage, invention, and sacrifice. The floating tanks of D-Day, strange, silent, and unstoppable, remain one of the most daring secrets of World War II.